How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bodacious Rant with Burn and Rye. Hope everybody's doing good. It's been a good weekend. Dodgers are going to the World Series, so that's one. I'm not going to talk about any other sports because it's just been a disappointing day. But what we are going to talk about is the latest horror movie to grace our theaters, and that is the sequel to a very surprise hit from 2021 or 2022, one of those two, and that is Smile 2, starring Naomi Scott. From like Aladdin, Charlie's Angels, the Power Rangers, all those reboots essentially. This is a non-spoiler review, so we are not going to get too deep into it. But if you do like the video, give us a thumbs up, and of course, ring the bell to stay up to date with notifications when we drop stuff, and of course, subscribe so you're all caught up on the ranting goodness. So appreciate you guys. So this is a direct sequel to the first one. It's not a prequel or anything like that. In which the first one starred Sosie Bacon, who's the daughter of Kevin Bacon, and I want to say Kyra Sedgwick. Not 1,000% sure, but I'm pretty sure on that one. And that was one where this girl witnesses a murder or a suicide really in front, and then gets harassed and possessed by a demon. This one, very similar story where Naomi Scott is a very popular a pop singer essentially, on a rebound, and witnesses the death of someone, and lo and behold, she gets also harassed by the smiling entity, because there's no real clear indication on what exactly it is, so that kind of adds to the mystery of this the Smile lore. And I had a bad first experience. I know we reviewed it a couple years ago, so you could probably find it in all the list of videos we've done. I just remember not liking it that much. I was a little disappointed. Upon rewatch, the first one, I actually really enjoyed it. However, and the characters are very similar. Both have dealt with trauma and are kind of coping with their own stuff still. I feel like Naomi Scott was maybe a little bit better acted, like her character, and I think a little bit more relatable. And some of these scares were actually way more haunting, I feel like. They got me. I jumped on the inside, and I was just like, oh my gosh, throughout the theater. But Bern, what did you think about this movie?
So I mean, like you mentioned, you can check out our thoughts possibly on the first Smile. I was genuinely surprised by that one, going into it thinking it was just going to be kind of one of those run-of-the-mill, low budget, low effort horror movies that we get a lot, thinking of things like Tear It or Night Swim, where it's just cheap scares, bad acting, and just really minimal effort all around by everyone involved. So I was surprised by the first movie that we got something a little bit more cerebral, touching on some bigger issues, and some of the scares were genuinely well thought out, I felt, even though that movie and this movie do that sort of thing, that they do rely on the whole jump scare effect of it, and where it's like something that's a very quiet scene and then boom, loud noise, and that's the thing that gets you. And that's not a thing I particularly love. It's something I've never really enjoyed. I don't like being terrorized in the movie theater or at home, and I appreciate more of the slow build and just the more atmospheric scares, which I will say there was a little bit more of too in this movie. Yeah, overall I do think that this movie in a lot of ways is a bit of an improvement on the first one. It almost seems like a redo of the first one if you think about it in a lot of ways, where it does hit a lot of similar beats. So it's kind of one of those weird things where it is a direct sequel, but you kind of don't have to always watch the first one to enjoy this one. At least I think you can very much enjoy this one on its own, and I think this movie just from beginning to end just feels like a little bit more confident in what it's trying to do. Where in the first movie, I feel like it handled certain things, in particular its ending and sort of the things that you walk away from, a little bit clumsily in that movie. And here it's much more assured. I think the central premise of it revolving around a pop star and just all the crazy things that sort of entails that lends itself well to this sort of demonic presence, I guess, sort of infiltrating that and turning things that are already sort of like a high wire act on in the normal circumstances, even more so with this whole thing going on. So I did really like that, and I do think Naomi Scott was fantastic in this. It's one of those things where it's like this feels like this should be sort of a big opening for her in terms of like other things to come forward. Because yeah, she's been in like failed upstarts with Power Rangers and the other movies that you mentioned, which were no fault of her own. But what she does here in this movie. Is great. She's up to 11 from the beginning. This must have been a really fun and a really also probably exhausting role for her because she's asked to do a lot in this movie and she handles it all pretty well. So yeah, overall I do think I enjoyed this one much more than the first one, even though I'm still getting harassed by the movie in all the scenes, the scary scenes that it has.
Yeah, no, what I was after rewatching the first one and then watching this one, I think the first one definitely has a better story. Messaging wise, it could do work like we talked about, like what you mentioned just now, and then also what we were talking about after we saw this one. And while Sosie Bacon didn't do a bad job at all, I don't think any of the actors in the first one did bad whatsoever. I think Naomi Scott really sold the insanity part of what this demon or entity does to the person, and it's just very well done. I think this is definitely a movie that if you didn't know about Naomi Scott beforehand, this is the movie to put her back on the map or on the map in general. Because yeah, she's not a bad actor whatsoever, but like you said, with like Power Rangers and Charlie's Angels that were supposed to be like reboots, essentially, they just flopped, and there's no word on whatsoever with any of them. So, I definitely think this one just dug a lot more holes in the plot compared to the first one. Like the first one was definitely, I think, broke it down a little bit better on what the creature does and the whole lore behind it. And the second one, I think it does a pretty good job of compounding on that, but it also digs itself some holes that either we're going to get a Smile 3 to hopefully clear that stuff up, or maybe just leave it at this because what they did with it, I don't think there's a really way out of it or a clean way out of it without making it just like, oh, that's what it was. That's dumb. With all that being said, given there's mostly jump scares, but honestly, the tension building when they do hit, I think made the jump scares more effective. I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 5, strictly just on Naomi Scott's performance, man. She killed it. And the scenes that really were emphasizing the hysteria behind all this was just like awesome. Is it in my top 5 of horror movies this year? Possibly, yes. We will have to wait till a couple others come out later this year, but this one's definitely a really good contender so far.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I think if you're going to watch this movie for one reason, then it would be Naomi Scott. Like, she does a fantastic job from beginning to end. Like I said, she's asked to do a lot, and she takes the ball and runs with it. One of the better horror movie performances I think we've gotten this year. And we've gotten a lot of good ones with Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley and The Substance. Micah Monroe in Long Legs, and Kaylee Spaney in Alien Romulus, and Neil Tiger Free in The First Omen. All fantastic performances. Hopefully somehow they get their due because all these are great. And yeah, Naomi Scott deserves to be up there with them. Yeah, I will agree with you that I do think in terms of the lore, the first movie has a lot more to offer. On that end, I think this movie just has a little bit more fun with the premise, I will say. But yeah, if you're looking for any more sort of like deeper look into this monster and the things it's doing and why, it's not really there. So I can see people walking away from that a little bit more let down this time around than in the first one. But like I said, everything else is a little bit better done in this one, and they clearly had a higher budget and they used it pretty well. And there's one particular scene that was very effective for me, and I thought they did a great job. If they can lean more into that in the third one, then less in the jump scares fashion, I think they have something great going on here. But yeah, overall I had a lot of fun with this movie, and it's going to be a 3 out of 5 for me.
That's very fair. Yeah, like I said, I didn't think about giving it a 4, but I also didn't think I was going to like it that much, and it shook me pretty well after the movie. So, but yeah, she's definitely up there with the other performances we got from our leading ladies of horror or other, scream queens for the most part. So, for those of you who did happen to watch this movie this weekend, please let us know what you thought in the comments. Did it freak you out like it got us, or was it laughable? Did you not like it? We'd love to get your thoughts on that. And until next time, everyone, just stay bodacious and keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely. Music is great too in this movie, but
Yes.
be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.